has underwent various challenges and trainings and became a long distance runner. I have ran few intercity runs, other long distances running runs. In fact, this is the story of many other Pinkies too. Pinkathon is a community platform where women of less physical activity experience come over to and share their experiences, train together and become athletes, marathoners and winners of many races. Getting back women of less physical activity to regular physical activities is in fact a contribution to their fitness and also has economic benefits too. Regular physical activities has less risk to diseases like cardiovascular issues, diabetes, hypertension, in fact, breast cancer and dementia too. Also, it leads to lesser premature mortality. Also, regular physical activity has an impact on the work performance too, and hence the productivity too. Pinkathon thus contributing to the fitness of women as well as the fitness of the society as well as the fitness and economy of the country too.
Hi, I'm Rajeshwari Saklecha, Chennai's Pinkathon ambassador, and yes, the economic performance of any country is directly linked to its health performance. Wealthier countries have healthy populations. Healthy citizens equals to healthy economy, and healthy economic performance equals to healthy countries. Yes, healthy countries equals to wealthy countries. You may ask why, and here is the reason. Healthy citizens are goal-oriented. Healthy citizens are energetic citizens. They are disciplined, they are energetic, they are consistent, they are self-motivated, they manage their time better. So why wouldn't a country need more citizens like that? A country needs more people like that. A country, not only in aspects of their health, but a country needs more people to grow in terms of economy as well. Economy needs more people like that to grow in terms of wealth and power as well.
Pinkathon is a movement that establishes the importance of physical fitness in women and empowers them to take time out every single day towards some form of activity that helps them stay physically and mentally fit. The emphasis that we lay on the education, financial security and independence of women should be extended towards health and fitness too. And Pinkathon makes that happen one woman at a time. While being the primary and the chief functioning officers of our homes and lives, Pinkathon has enabled thousands of women, including me, to learn to put ourselves first and take good care of ourselves. Like the message says, fit women for fit families.
Hi everyone, this is Anju Modgill. I hope everyone is safe and healthy. Like everyone knows, COVID-19 pandemic hit the world and every person in the world really hard, and same like the sports industry, there were many events getting cancelled or postponed. So this pandemic gave us an opportunity to look into things apart from the field we are into it. So it gave me opportunity to recover, which I think was much required for everyone, to spend time with the family, to take our creative side out and to find out what you can explore more about yourself. And yes, so that's how I spent most of my lockdown: painting, working on my online courses for my mental health, doing physical training at home, having unique ideas to exercise, staying at home.
नमस्कार, मैं हूं दीपिका अर्जुन अवाड़ी। मैं बिलीव करती हूं जो अच्छा स्पोर्ट्स करता है इनका शरीर बहुत अच्छा रहता है और खुद सुस्त रहता है और बाकी परिवार लोग को सुस्त रखने की कोशिश करता है। मैं ये मानती हूं जो स्पोर्ट्स करेगा जिंदगी भर कभी बीमारी नहीं होगा। जैसे मैं अभी तक मैं कोई बड़ा बीमारी का सामना नहीं किया है। मैं स्पोर्ट्स करती हूँ, इसलिए मैं खुद को सुस्त रखती हूँ और खुद को फिट रखती हूँ।
Hi, I'm Jinson Johnson, middle distance runner, national record holder in 1500 meter race and gold medalist in 2018 Asian Games, I am confident that sports will restart across all categories. I am also putting special attention to make sure my state is always on point.
Hello, I am Neeraj Chopra, gold medal winner at the 2018 Asian Games in javelin throw and current national record holder. I look forward to seeing sports make a comeback and I am optimistic about the future of sports.
Hi, मैं हिमा दास, स्प्रिंटर एंड करंट इंडियन रिकॉर्ड होल्डर इन 400 मीटर। मैं ये मानती हूँ कि वातावरण के साथ हम सभी लोगों को एडजस्ट करना चाहिए। लॉकडाउन के दौरान मैंने अपने फिटनेस को और डाइट को काफ़ी ख्याल रखा ताकि मेरा स्किल अच्छी रहे, फिट रहे, इम्यून रहे।
Hi, I am Mohammad Nasaiya, sprinter and current national record in 400 meter. I am positive that the sports will make comeback after this pandemic and therefore advise all my fellow athletes to continue putting their hard work preparation for the training.
Hello everyone, so finally we are getting sports back on track, and as an athlete I'm really very excited and looking forward because we've been in such a situation where everything has come to a standstill and everyone was at home doing nothing, and being a sports person, being an athlete, it was really hard for us to stay home without traveling or without any tournaments. So I think it's really good that now things have been changing and we've started getting back on track, and it's a good thing for every athlete because we can come back and focus on our sport and play the sport. So I'm really very happy and really looking forward for it.
Hi guys, this is Smriti Mandana, and I think there's definitely a headroom available to develop women's cricket in India, and I think the easiest way to develop is to reach the grassroots level, try to get that passion in young girls, try to give them better facilities and good skill training from at that young age. So I think there'll be a lot of interest, and then we'll be able to grow women's cricket overall and grow the interest of young girls to play cricket or want to be a cricketer much more, and we'll get a lot of more girls coming through the ranks. So if we want to take the game to the next level in India, I think this is the easiest way to do it, and I think we all should work towards that.
Pinkathon is much more than just a running event for women. It is a platform where women get to discover their strengths, beliefs and potential. Here, women find courage to break the barriers on their own or with the support of other Pink sisters. It is certainly a seed of positive change and transformation. At Pinkathon, women are encouraged to step out of their homes, to adopt a healthy lifestyle, to improve her overall health and fitness, and ultimately the family's health, and hence building up the healthy society, and in this way the entire nation.
Pinkathon for me is the story of my running. In 2016, I joined Pinkathon. Started with 2 kilometers, underwent various challenges and trainings, and became a long distance runner. I have ran few intercity runs, other long distances, running runs. In fact, this is the story of many other Pinkies too. Pinkathon is a community platform where women of less physical activity experience come over to and share their experiences, train together and become athletes, marathoners and winners of many races. Getting back women of less physical activity to regular physical activities is in fact a contribution to their fitness and also has economic benefits too. Regular physical activities has less risk to diseases like cardiovascular issues, diabetes, hypertension, in fact, breast cancer and dementia too. Also, it leads to lesser premature mortality. Also, regular physical activity has an impact on the work performance too, and hence the productivity too. Pinkathon thus contributing to the fitness of women as well as the fitness of the society as well as the fitness and economy of the country too.
Hi, I'm Rajeshwari Saklecha, Chennai's Pinkathon Ambassador, and yes, the economic performance of any country is directly linked to its health performance. Wealthier countries have healthy populations. Healthy citizens equals to healthy economy, and healthy economic performance equals to healthy countries. Yes, healthy countries equals to wealthy countries. You may ask why, and here is the reason. Healthy citizens are goal-oriented. Healthy citizens are energetic citizens. They are disciplined, they're energetic, they're consistent, they're self-motivated, they manage their time better. So why wouldn't a country need more citizens like that? A country needs more people like that. A country, not only in aspects of their health, but a country needs more people to grow in terms of economy as well. Economy needs more people like that to grow in terms of wealth and power as well.
Pinkathon is a movement that establishes the importance of physical fitness in women and empowers them to take time out every single day towards some form of activity that helps them stay physically and mentally fit. The emphasis that we lay on the education, financial security, and independence of women should be extended towards health and fitness too. And Pinkathon makes that happen one woman at a time. While being the primary and the chief functioning officers of our homes and lives, Pinkathon has enabled thousands of women, including me, to learn to put ourselves first and take good care of ourselves. Like the message says, fit women for fit families.
Hi everyone, this is Anju Modgill. I hope everyone is safe and healthy. Like everyone knows, COVID-19 pandemic hit the world, every person in the world really hard, and same like the sports industry.
Hi guys, hi Matthew, hi Michelle.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Good to see you all. Hi Sachin.
Hi, good afternoon. It's good to see you all, and thank you so much for joining us. We're just waiting for Mr. Larsing to join us on this virtual space, and we will begin the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sachin. How's my sound?
Absolutely crisp and clear.
Great. And have we heard from Larsing this morning?
Yes, we have. He's just trying to connect, but I think we shall be beginning now. And during the course of the session, he will definitely join us.
Great. Okay. We can run without him and bring him in when we need. So thanks, Imran and Matthew, for joining us. And good morning, Matthew.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon.
Thank you. If I could formally introduce everybody on this panel, Michelle, and all the panelists' permission. Thank you, and I request, welcome back all our viewers as well. Thank you so much for joining us for the next panel discussion. And before that, would like to mention that there will be a question answer session at the end of the panel discussion. If you have any questions, do type in your questions in the Q&A box that's at the top right of the screen, mentioning first whom you want to address it to, then your name, then your organization's name, and then the question. That way, it gets easier for us to address it to the right and respective individual. Key investment areas in Indian sports. It's a panel discussion with impact investors and innovators in sport on identifying the best investment opportunities in the Indian sports industry. Any moment we'll be joined by Mr. Larsing Ming Soyan, owner Shillong Lajong FC. He's an entrepreneur who has contributed immensely to the field of hospitality, sports, music, and entertainment in the Northeast region. He is currently Vice President, All India Football Federation, President, Meghalaya Football Association, Chairman, Development Committee, Chairman, Tourism Committee of Federation of Industries, Northeastern Region, and member of CII National Committee on Sports. He'll be joining us any minute now. Also, we have with us Mr. Matthew Wheeler, CEO A&W Capital Limited. He's based in London and has been a leading figure in the international sports market for over 30 years as a senior executive advisor and company chairman. In Europe, he is managing partner of Sports Investment Partners, and in 2016, he set up ANW Capital, which is a cross-border advisory business linking India and the West, working exclusively in sport, gaming, and media. Mr. Wheeler has been a board director of 2 professional football clubs, Eintracht Frankfurt in the German Bundesliga and the DC United in the MLS, the US Soccer League, where he was part of the team which created the franchise and launched the league. So warm welcome to you, Mr. Wheeler. We also have with us Mr. Imran Jafar, Managing Partner, Gaja Capital. He has 21 years of experience in private equity, pharmaceuticals, and technology services. Prior to Gaja, he worked in a variety of roles of increasing responsibility at Dr. Reddy's and Wipro Technologies. At Gaja, he leads investments in the education and consumer clusters. He has been closely involved with Gaja's investments in Sports Village, Lead Squared, Kangaroo Kids, Euro Kids, John Distilleries, CL Educate, Indus World Schools, to name a few. Warm welcome to you, Mr. Imran Jafar, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sachin.
And to moderate the session, would like to welcome Ms. Michelle Wade, Commissioner to South Asia, State Government of Victoria, Australia. Michelle manages Victorian government operations and promotion of trade and investment across South Asia and has held senior diplomatic postings for the Australian government in Italy, Malaysia, and Spain. Her territory includes 4 of Victoria's top 10 education markets, being India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Pakistan. She's also responsible for the in-market delivery of Victoria's India strategy, a significant program of engagement across business, education, arts, tourism, health, sports, and startup. Well, before I hand it over to Ms. Michelle Wade, a gentle reminder to all our viewers to please send in their questions in the Q&A section, which is at the top right section on the screen. And please mention whom you want to address the question to. And if you're viewing this event on YouTube Live, please feel free to put in your questions in the comment box. And also request all our panelists to operate from only one device. Any other device using the same platform in the same premise that you are in right now might lead to an echo in your audio. So with that, thank you so much. Welcome to all the panelists, and I hand it over to Michelle Wade.
Thanks, Sachin, for that great introduction. I'm delighted to be here today. A really interesting conversation I think we've got to have from investors and advisors, what it's like to look for investment and what it's like to receive investment. We're just waiting for La Sing from Shillong Lajong Football Club to join us. But in the meantime, or if he can't join us, I know, having been in contact with Imran and Matthew over the course of the week, they've got plenty to say. I'm just going to mention a couple of things from my perspective. You heard I'm the Commissioner of the State Government of Victoria, Australia. I'm based in Bangalore. Those of you who might not know, Victoria, best to say its capital is Melbourne, and it's the home of the MCG. So I was really proud to be at the last big event pre-COVID globally, was the final of the women's T20 cricket with India and Australia. And we took a delegation of Indian women involved in the sports and gaming mission to that event. And I was so inspired by Rima and her talk in the last session that I had to go and change my t-shirt and put on my Phenomenal Woman t-shirt as we prepare for International Women's Day on Monday. In terms of Melbourne right now, it's just worth thinking that we've just had the Australian Open, slightly disrupted with a snap lockdown, but nonetheless, it was the first major event in sport with spectators. We're running currently the Women's Football League, and the Men's Australian Football League, with crowds of about 50%, will resume in the next couple of weeks. So that will mean we will end up with crowds of about 50,000 people at the MCG. We're really looking forward to and planning for the Grand Prix in Melbourne in November this year as well. That's been rescheduled on the fixtures. But that just gives you some insight into Melbourne and our great love of sport. But now we're going to talk a little bit more about, you know, sport as a commercial entity, and we do need it funded to make sure it's able to happen at a professional level. So I'm going to go first to Imran. You heard that Imran's managing partner of Gajah Capital, and I think a really interesting portfolio of companies impacting both education, sports, and then also into some initiatives around software and online activities also. So Imran, I'd just like to hear a little bit about you from Gajah Capital on your current investments, particularly in sports, and what you think the outlook for Indian companies is.
Thank you, Michelle. And I love the message of Phenomenal Woman because even when you look at sectors like health and fitness, the women demographic, especially young women and girls in schools, I think is the most exciting part of that opportunity. And I'll talk about it in a moment. So a quick 2 minutes on Gajah Capital. We're a private equity firm. Unlike venture capitalists that come in at very early stages, we come in at companies that are, let's say, roughly $10 million in revenue and are on a path from 10 to 100 million in revenue, and have validated unit economics, and have found a product or service, that has, a product market fit that goes beyond, let's say, the early adopters in their respective markets. And we've done a fair amount of work in the K-12 demographic. We've invested in core schools, we've invested in edtech companies, and so on. But our biggest sports investment is India's leading youth sports platform called Sports Village. And Sports Village works with schools to run their physical education programs on an outsourced basis. We're the largest such provider in India and in the Middle East. So we work with schools with trained coaches, props, and curriculum. And the mission there is that, how do you get back the sports classes from the maths and science and English teachers who want to take it away to complete their syllabi? So that's really the mission in schools. But we also run academies in neighborhoods and in school venues. We're the largest in India, and we also have a presence in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, where we work in multiple sports, 16 of them, not just cricket, which is of course important in the Indian context. But the mission in academies is how do you offer a multi-sport experience to children, especially middle schoolers. And we also work with sports and sports leagues and brands that care about engaging children primarily through sports. And that is our corporate business. So put together, Sports Village is a platform that addresses engagement with children through sports in schools, in neighborhoods, and through brands.
That's great, thank you. And great to have you join us now too, Larsing. I'm going to, I can see that you're in the office car, or car office. So I'm just going to leave you a little bit of time to catch your breath, and we might go to Matthew from CEO of A&W Capital, just to talk to us of observations on international investment from a company overseas and the outlook for India.
Thank you, Michelle, and good afternoon, everybody from London, a cold London. But Saturday morning, I'm trying not to look at the test score at the moment because I think it's pretty bad. So we'll keep talking business. Thank you, and a pleasure to be part of the panel. I'm based in London, and I've worked in the sports investment business internationally for the last 15 years. Prior to that, I ran 2 sports agencies. So I've had, as Michelle said in the introduction, some 30 years of experience in the sports industry, in the last 15 in and around investment. I've always kept my eye on what's happening in India, partly because I have a cricket background. A long time ago, I was a professional cricketer. So of course, if you play cricket, you keep your eye on India. And having worked in Europe and the US for many years, I always felt that at some point, the Indian sports economy was going to start really developing. And 4 or 5 years ago, I felt that was the right time. And why did I think it was the right time for us to then come to India? Because clearly the economy was and is growing. I think India, on some measures, is the world's 3rd biggest economy and growing. It's a sports-loving nation. And I could see that the sports ecosystem in India was going to develop. And clearly that is happening. And I'm sure we're going to talk about that across the next 40 minutes or so. That the whole sports ecosystem in India from top to bottom is growing rapidly. There are, of course, some historic ties between England and India, and cricket as well being a sort of binding force. So those are all the reasons that we decided to come to try and set up in India. We set up in 2016 in partnership with a local Indian multi-family office, which works with wealthy families on their investment portfolio. So I felt I had to have an Indian partner. And between 2016 and actually the start of the pandemic, I was coming to India probably about once a month. So I came 30 times as we set up the office and as we developed, and just to really sort of get into and understand the ecosystem. And I think there is there are great developments going on in the Indian sports economy. And just as a sort of measure of that, if you look at the number of running races, marathon races, as you call them, in India that there were 10 years ago, there were a handful. You know, the Mumbai Marathon, obviously, with programs started a lot. And now there are some 1,600 major races around India, and growing and growing and growing. And that's just an indication, I think, of what's happening on the ground. And we're very excited to be part of it. I'm sure we're going to talk in a little bit about what investors look for. But what we've definitely seen in the last couple of years is an increasing confidence from investors, both within India, but also from outside India, to invest in the sports ecosystem of India. And that's clearly a trend. So I think it's a very exciting time. I think there are great opportunities. And for the sports businesses in India, both within India, as the economy continues to grow and development, and globally. And we're excited to be a part of it.
That's great. Thank you, Matthew. And thank you for joining us so early in the morning from cold London as well. And we won't look too much at the cricket score.
A pleasure. No, I've given up looking at it.
Now, Larsing, I hope you can hear us now. So thank you again for joining us. You're clearly a very busy man. I just think that your story with Shillong FC and your relationship both as having invested in the club and also having the club receive international investment is a really interesting one. So could you tell us a little bit more about the club and your background to being an investor and attracting investment?
Yes, very good afternoon to everyone. First of all, quick apologies for the delay. There was a government appointment which got delayed, and that's the reason why I couldn't make it on time. It was not totally under my control, but anyway, I'm glad to be here now. And yes, my involvement with the Indian footballing club ecosystem has been almost 2 decades. But it was in the latter half of the last decade, which is 2008-9 onwards, that we were involved at the national club circuit level. So I've been involved with Shillong Lajong since the early 2000s, and I've basically overseen the growth of a small grassroots-based club, evolving into a club that eventually played in the National Football League, the Premier Football League then, which was the I-League. And that was in 2009 onwards. And of course, as you've correctly mentioned, in 2011, we were also the first football club in the country to receive a foreign FDI investment into the club. And of course, in 2014, when the ISL started, Lajong had also collaborated, and in fact, we had won the bid for a franchise, which was Northeast United, and we were the lead bidders then of a larger consortium. And of course, our story was that we also decided to exit the subsequent year, while things were on a high in the sense of the kind of, if any of you uh, privy to the first season, or if any of you all did witness the first season, it was a highly successful season in terms of impact and crowds. Never seen before in Indian football in terms of the broadcasting, crowds, and the entire package. But we had strategically disinvested immediately. We exited in favor of concentrating on the Shillong Lajong Football Club rather than maintaining two investments. Those are strategic decisions that we made at that point of time, for we felt that at some stage there would anyway be a unification of a larger national league, which is currently happening as we speak. And yes, it's been an interesting decade for Indian football, more so the last 5 to 6 years. And I can easily say that the next 4 to 5 years are going to be very, very interesting times for Indian football, as we see the evolution of a very, very strong and dynamic league ecosystem in the country. The Indian football has already seen many investments happen in the last couple of years, and I'm sure we are bound to see many more players come in. We saw Man City enter the fray last year in the ISL, and I'm sure with the ever-evolving landscape, we will see many more international players entering the footballing landscape. Similarly, at Lajong, we, in the last couple of years, decided to strategically disinvest and invest rather in real estate and the building of infrastructure, as we have a long-term growth plan ahead of us. Today, I can proudly say that we are one of the few football clubs in the country that actually owns real estate. We had in fact acquired about 30 acres of land just outside the city of Shillong a couple of years back, and obviously with the vision plan of building a very strong developmental center, because we believe that football is totally brick and mortar at the end of the day, and technology in the sense of building a proper developmental program in-house is going to be fundamental to the long-term sustainability of football clubs. And so that's in a gist what my story is with the football club and the football scene in India. Interestingly, we also, as a football club, which I could mention, is that we're probably the first club to break the 1 crore barrier in terms of player sales, revenue from player sales, because that is something, again, very new in the Indian footballing season. Football in India has not reached a level where clubs actually develop and sell players, but we've done that, and we're proud of that fact. We're probably, as of today, one of the highest revenue earners for selling domestic players in the country. And of course, besides that, I also wear the avatar of a federation office bearer. I've been a vice president of the All India Football Federation for the last 2 terms, and therefore have also overseen the development of the league system from an administrative perspective. So in short, that is my introduction, and pleased to be with you all.
That's great, Larsing, and such an interesting time to be building the league, as we've watched, the IPL and the kabaddi and now the football as well. I just want to reflect on you having been the first club to receive that international investment. Can you tell us, were you actively looking for an investor, or did they find you?
So I think it was a bit of both. It was a bit of both because when the league was really struggling back then. The All India Football Federation had actually got a long-term broadcasting deal already signed and sealed with a group and company called the Z Group, ZTV. And they were running 10 sports and a few of the sports channels back in the days. but unfortunately they could they could never really monetize the, the league and really take it to the levels that they perhaps envisioned when they signed the deal. And in fact, it was in the year 2011 that as Z was struggling 3 or 4 years into their partnership with the All India Football Federation, that Reliance IMG had kind of started their partnership and their foray into looking at other sports besides the IPL. I mean, I think the IPL was the evolution for them actually eventually collaborating. And so when Reliance and IMG got together, and they eventually bought out the Z contract. And but otherwise, for us, what happened was we were in a situation where we understood that it would make sense to get investment coming in, because we saw a 10-year gestation period before anything. Back then we saw a 10-year gestation period before anything sustainable could emerge from Indian football. So, but we had not really pressed the pedals when this offer came to us. So it was more a question of some investors looking at investing into Indian football and meeting a club that was open-minded to a certain amount of investment. So the investments at that stage were not substantially huge. We eventually divested about 15% of our equity, but in a way that helped us perhaps sustain our operations for the last decade, including the fact that it allowed us to evolve into larger partnerships, acquiring franchise in the ISL, eventually selling off that franchise at a favorable value. So we were in a way lucky that we had a quantum rise in valuation from the time that we invested and disinvested in the ISL at that point of time. And yes, so that in a way is what it was. Yeah.
That's great, Larsing. Now we're getting some interesting questions coming in from the audience as well. And one for Matthew. There's people particularly interested in esports, and so we're interested to hear from you on what you think the attraction of esports and potential for investment in India is.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you and I talked a little bit about this earlier in the week. I mean, I think if we'd been having this conference 18 months ago, none of us would have talked about esports. We'd have been talking exclusively about the more traditional on-ground sports like football, kabaddi, cricket, etc. But quite clearly, what's happened in the last 12 months around the world, but particularly in India, is a huge development of the digital economy. Esports itself is very interesting. I'm sure most people understand. There's a huge industry out there called gaming, where people are playing games either online or in home, and then part of that is esports, where people who are very, very good at it are playing against each other, and other people are watching. So esports is a sort of a part of the gaming industry. And I've actually spent the last 4 or 5 years in Europe and the US, so trying to understand where the real value in esports is. Quite clearly, publishers are making a lot of money in gaming and esports because people are playing the games. I was trying to work out, where in the esports ecosystem, aside from the publishers, where were people making money in a sustainable way? Where was the value? What's happened in India over the last 10 months, 12 months is 5 years of development in this area have just been squashed because we've all been stuck at home and we've all needed things to do. India has a young population. Smartphone penetration is huge. Data's, very cheap, as we know, very competitive market. So all those things have combined to drive people to engage more with digital media, and esports is rising and rising in India. And I think actually it does create a huge opportunity for India and Indian businesses, both in sort of game development, but also in all the sub-services beneath that, the streaming services, the content creation services. And that's a really, really interesting area, because actually producing a game that succeeds is a bit hit and miss. It's a bit like producing a movie, I guess. out of 100, maybe 2 or 3 are going to be hits. So that's a little bit hit and miss, but the services beneath it, the platforms beneath it is where the real value is. And we're working with some really interesting businesses, content creation businesses, platform businesses, which are sort of, if you like, the picks and shovels to the esports revolution. And whatever the successful games, these platform businesses are going to be successful. And we've seen a huge rise in users, monthly active users in these businesses. So the esports is very, very interesting for sure. Still nascent, and also an opportunity for Indian businesses to sort of go international, because of course, unlike a sort of bricks and mortar business, actually anything digital online, you can scale very quickly, both domestically and internationally.
That's very interesting you say that, Matthew. I mentioned before that I took a group of women from sports and gaming industry to Melbourne last year around T20. And one of those in particular, Kirti Singh from Hit Wicket, their company went on to win a major award from the Prime Minister last year since coming back. So I'm fascinated to hear in that growth of the industry. So Imran, really interested in the work that that you're doing, particularly around Sports Village. So someone in the audience has asked us, can sports produce the next unicorn from India, and what are the best opportunities for the Indian sports industry?
Thanks, Michelle. Absolutely. And we firmly believe that there won't be just one unicorn. There'll be several unicorns. And as Matthew rightly pointed out, when you look at the sports economy, it's in the last, I'd say, 10 years, snowballed into something very meaningful. And I must say that during the COVID year, some of those trends accelerated. Any business, and if I could take a step back as investors, when you look at any consumer subsegment, what are you looking for? You're looking for a market that is large enough in terms of number of users, what Matthew calls monthly active users. Engaged users at the top of the funnel needs to be large enough. And in India, we all know our demographics, and sports captivates the imagination of a very large number of people. I mean, you just have to look at the statistics around a cricket match and you know what I'm talking about. So India is an economy of a very large number of players, but also a very large number of viewers. We know this from the television era. We know this from the Hotstar OTT era. And now we're seeing this repeat in esports and gaming. And then what happened during COVID was the willingness to pay. And this has been the biggest question for all investors investing in sports. You have a very large population engaging with sports, viewing sports. Will they really pay for sports? And it was great to see Larsing talk about his first crore deal with players. Our bet is that there will be several Virat Kohlis. I mean, Virat Kohli, as one example, could be the first billionaire sports person in India because of the way his portfolio is shaping up. And there will be several such athletes at the performance sports area, but also at the grassroots level. You will see several athletes in multiple sports beginning to look at sports as a career. So what we love about sports as a business is that it combines three very important trends in consumer. Sports as a career, where you could work as a coach in a school and earn a good living, or you could be a star athlete earning, many crores, or you could create wealth in the hundreds of millions. So sports as a career, and sports as entertainment, where esports is a healthy alternative to passive screen time. Instead of binge watching Netflix, eating into your sleep, you're better off engaging with something that is interactive. So a healthy alternative to passive sports. And then health and fitness as a life skill. And if you look at these three elements coming together, these are significant total addressable markets, which in combination could create many unicorns over the next decade.
That's great, thank you. And Larsing, one for you for the audience, because we have talked just then about, from grassroots to professional sports. How would you advise smaller grassroots style events in India to go about attracting funding?
Sorry, grassroots. Could you just repeat the last part? Yeah.
Yeah. So how would you advise smaller scale events in India to go about attracting funding?
You're talking about the events, as in leagues and tournaments.
Yes.
Okay. So I think funding in terms of sponsorship and revenue, right? In terms of yeah. So again, I think you know the beauty. I mean, obviously, when you don't have a you know a product which is national in the sense of its appeal and its viewership, the way forward is really to look at it as a very localized and regionalized product, and that's where micro marketing also works, and that's where companies also look at, because companies have various structures in the way they go about marketing. And so at the national level, they have a particular national outlay in terms of how they market, how they spend their money in their various marketing.
Okay, thanks. I think we've just lost your sound for a little moment, Larsing. So,
may I request you to unmute Ms. Larsing?
Yes, I have unmuted. Let me just
now
hold
we
this
can hear you.
down.
Now we can hear you.
Okay. So as I said, diverse country. So small.
If I may interrupt, Michelle, I'm sorry. I think there are some network issues on Ms. Larsing's. Yeah.
That's okay. We might go back to Matthew now. Matthew, you spoke about e-gaming, esports, you know, really reaching a peak last year and changing as a result of COVID. What other post-COVID trends do you think will impact sports investment, both live and online sports?
Just to slightly, I'm not sure esports has yet reached a peak. I think that it's accelerated hugely, but I think we're still to see the peak. But to answer your question, I mean, I think, you know, look, as it has in every industry in every country in the world, COVID's had some immediate impacts and some lasting impacts. And you know, we've talked about one of the immediate impacts, but the lasting impacts to all aspects of life, not just the sports industry. That there are lasting impacts, and clearly the whole drive to digital is going to be a legacy. It would have happened anyway, because the younger generation engage with media in a different way to the way we do. So viewing habits at an elite end of sport have changed, and they've changed forever. You know, when we were young, we sat on the sofa and we watched the sport, and we watched it from the beginning, we watched it to the end, and that's not what happens anymore. You know, kids are watching it on well, we all are, not just kids. We're all watching it now on mobile, on various devices. We're snacking more, and just at the elite end and the media end, that's here to stay. And the increased fragmentation of media and media channels is definitely here to stay. I think any business, and particularly in sport over the last year, the businesses that have thrived and survived have a strong digital offering. And I think that will continue to have to be the case. You have to deal with, reach your consumer and speak with your consumer. Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Hi, sorry, Michelle. I think you have to speak with and work with your consumer in a different way. And I think that is a legacy of what's happened in the last year. However, and I know things are probably not quite as bad in India as they have been in England, but people will come back to running marathons. We will have full stadia again for cricket matches and football matches. Gyms will be full again. So I don't think the past is completely gone, but things have changed, and particularly, as I say, every business, whatever it is, has to make sure its digital offering is right. And if they do, I think there are great opportunities. If they don't, I think they're going to really struggle.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. You know, one of the things I was struck by on public transport on our trams in Melbourne recently, back pre-COVID, was just how many of our international students were watching small clips of sports from their country on their iPhones, and I think we'll see more and more of that in India going forward. I think it's something,
100%.
of
Absolutely.
particular.
Sorry, Michelle, to interrupt, but when you see Formula One, developing its own esports game, when you see every league around the world, as you say, developing short form content, engaging content in a different way, and that's the way we're all now consuming media, because we are on the move and we hold these devices and we want to consume all the time.
It's
In
interesting.
fact, I did, outside sport, I did comment to someone the other day. I was standing in my kitchen in London watching a high definition video of the surface of Mars. I mean, just get your head around that. Incredible. Absolutely. It just tells you everything about how we now consume, and we just expect that.
Yeah, and also I think that a lot of that camera equipment was just consumer-based equipment. So it's also how accessible it is going forward, even at that smaller sports level that that some people were asking about before. Imran, I'm fascinated by your portfolio. We also watch companies from India that are going global, and the sorts of companies that you've described as they get Series B funding and the like. What's been your experience in taking companies you invest in overseas? So I note that you've got Sports Village in India, now in the Middle East. Does it have a place in the Western markets, or would you stick closer to South Asia?
Thanks, Michelle. No, absolutely. I think there are huge opportunities of building Indian sports companies and taking them global. For example, and just speaking philosophically first, and I'll give you specific examples of what we did in Sports Village. For example, there is an investment thesis to bet on, I feel, to taking cricket global. I mean, cricket could be the next global sport like football or soccer. Today, cricket touches maybe a third of the world economies. It has the potential of going global, and who better suited than some of the countries represented around this panel to be able to take cricket and make it a global sport. And that's just one opportunity. But in the short term, companies like Sports Village are going to India-like countries. So for instance, when we expanded into the Middle East, we did so by acquiring a few academies in Dubai and then building on that foothold by expanding into Abu Dhabi. And we started, of course, with the cricket corridor, taking Indian coaches to the Middle East, taking football coaches, expat coaches typically in Dubai, and bringing them to India, and getting the corridor working so that we could make talent available on both sides of that bridge. But then now we've expanded into 16 sports, swimming, gymnastics, cricket, football, martial art, yoga, another great export from India other than cricket that we can take global. So in the short term, Sports Village, of course, will be a dominant youth sports platform in India and expand to the Middle East. But there's no reason why we can't build on this corridor between India and Europe, for example, or the cricketing nations. India, UK, for example, could be an excellent corridor that starts with cricket, but then extends into other sports.
That's interesting you say that also, because we're seeing a pattern with some companies when we ask them to look at their stats in various areas, that some of their markets are following the diaspora markets around the world as well. So I can see that diaspora starts an initial market, and then the product gets better known and is able to get a foothold. Which is interesting. But I think we're running out of time now for this fantastic and interactive discussion on investment. It's been great to hear from Larsing from the club, and also Imran and Matthew from Investors. So just to wrap up, and a final question for you all, starting with Larsen, just in one quick sentence, what would be your piece of advice for Indian sports companies seeking investment?
Actually, I can only speak. It would probably run common with others as well. I think the most important thing is to look at a long-term sustainability plan, and look at investing on ground as much as you build your brand and your visibility otherwise as well. Because at the end of the day, especially with clubs like football, unless you really have a strong infra on ground, it's going to be very, very difficult to be a true football club. So that's one area where all clubs that are looking long term should look at, because eventually I'm sure any investor looking at football clubs would probably also look at these factors.
Great advice, Larsing. And over to you, Imran.
My biggest message for entrepreneurs looking to build companies in sports is focus on your customer and focus on usage. To take an example from the fitness world, we don't need another treadmill with a great Apple-like screen. We need usage. We need to find a way to engage our users, get them to play more if they're young children, get them to focus on sports that they love. I think if you do that and you do it over a large base, you'll be very valuable.
Great. And Matthew?
Well, I completely endorse what they both said, but if you're asking me what piece of advice would I give an Indian sports business looking to raise capital, is come and talk to us. That's exactly what we set up for. And we're in touch with investors throughout India and throughout the world. So please come and talk to us. That's what we're here for.
That's great. Well, that's very positive words to end with, Matthew, and I hope that...
Sorry to end with an ad, but there you go. You did ask the question.
Well, I'm hoping that it means that both you and Imran are run down with inquiries. I certainly have some things I want to talk with you about from a commercial perspective as well. So it's certainly a great forum to engage in. So thank you to everyone who's joined us today. Thank you, Larsing, for joining us in those challenging conditions and making time post-ministerial meetings. We've also got to see the background of the Northeast in your car drive. Thank you, Imran, for joining us from Mumbai, and Matthew from London. It's been a great pleasure.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. And would like to thank all the panelists. Thank you, Mr. Wheeler, for taking the time out, especially so early in the morning, and sharing inputs. All our viewers have been privileged to receive global insights on investments in the sports industry. And as you mentioned, a lot of us do spend a lot of time binge eating while watching content on our devices. So we need to change that to binge sports consumption and create the Netflixes of sports. And thank you, Mr. Larsing. It's great to hear positive views on the opportunity that lie ahead to attract investments in sports. Thank you, Mr. Imran Jafar. As you rightly said, the change in dynamics. Sports is entertainment, and that's the only way it could be penetrated into all realms of life. And a big thank you to Michelle. This is a much needed topic of discussion in sports conferences, and you touched upon all key areas in investments in sports in India. So thank you so much to each and everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. You too. Have a fantastic day. Thank you so much. And now we're moving on to the next session, which is Fit India for which is the producing world champions. I request that all our viewers, all our delegates need to go to the CII Hive that's on the main page. I'll repeat this. You need to go to the CII Hive lobby that's on the main page. Click on the conference section that's at the top of the panel of your screen, and kindly join Producing World Champions. The session's name is Producing World Champions. I will see you on the other side.